this video, we are going to talk about two very important aspects of training and programming, which are frequency and the number of sets you're going to be doing. So, for me, when it comes to frequency, I like to have everything covered for my workouts. The way I work is I base my workouts around a certain lift, and that lift is either going to be an upper body or a lower body lift. Meaning that on a lower body day, I only work the lower body, and on upper body day, I only work the upper body. This means that if I have, because I personally train 6 times a week, and I take a Sunday off, if I have 3 days of upper and 3 days of lower, I will want to work the muscles of my upper body as much as possible during these 3 days. But, and that's something that people end up finding out sooner or later, it doesn't mean that I do bench press 3 times a week. The reason why is because I've tried in the past when I was powerlifting, doing bench 3 times a week is a recipe for disaster because your shoulders are going to suffer. You're going to end up developing nagging pains in your shoulder if you do conventional like competition bench press. So what do? I separate my days so that I have 2 days of bench and 2 days of arms. And because these days rotate, there are 3 upper body days a week. So it's either 2 arm days and 1 bench day, or 2 bench days and 1 arm day. And it's always rotating like this. And they're always separated. So if I have a bench day and a second bench day in the week, there's going to be an arm day in between. So it's going to be bench Monday, arm Wednesday, bench Friday. So that's my frequency for that, for bench. For squats, I personally have a very low frequency for squats. I squat, meaning high bar squats, every 8 days. So there are weeks where I don't squat at all. But I will always have a knee flexion movement in there. So in my 3 lower body days, in my 4 lower body days, out of the 4, there are 3 where there are knee flexion movements. It doesn't mean that it's going to be necessarily a back squat, but it can be a front squat, it can be a safety bar squat, because these deload the knee. I had pretty bad problems with my knees. I destroyed my right knee playing football, my left knee playing basketball. So for me, it takes a very long time to warm up my legs. So if I'm going to do squats, I'm going to do a ton of them. So on my squat day, I'm going to do at least 11 to 12 heavy squats during that day without continuing the warm up. So it's going to be a lot of volume on that day because my knees are nice and warm. So that's for squats. For deadlift, it's sort of the same principle, but I like to pull from the floor. So I pull from the floor every 4 days. And I have 1 day where I will go through the range of motion of the deadlift with a Romanian deadlift, but it's not a pull from the floor, it's from the rack. For arms is pretty much what I train the most with the most frequency. I train my arms every time I do an upper body day. So I will have a bicep movement with an elbow flexion in there at some point. So that's how I train for hypertrophy. I like to have days where I know I'm going to go full on and really annihilate my muscles. And I have other days where I'm just going to stimulate them a little bit. But it never happens that I never train them. If I have a lower body day, every muscle of my lower body is going to be worked. For me, a lower body day without knee flexion, you're missing something. Or without a hip hinge, it's not complete. It's the same for upper body. Even if I train arms, I will always have some movement to send some blood in my chest. It helps with recovery, it helps keeping me healthy, and it helps with protein synthesis because the way it works for naturals is there's a 48-hour cycle after you train where the muscles recover, and after that, it's pretty much okay. So if you manage to stimulate the muscle every 48 hours, it's going to stimulate your growth. So that's for my frequency. For my sets, If you've watched my video about my rep ranges, you already know. For my heavy movements, I do 1 to 3 sets. That's it. 1 to 3. I never do 5 sets of heavy, 10 sets of heavy. I stay between 1 and 3. And if it's 1, it means I'm going to do more accessories and more sets and reps afterwards with other movements. If it's 3, I know I can take it easy on the accessories. For other lifts, I personally always go for 4 sets of accessories because I personally feel like 2 is not enough and 5 is too much. 4 is just the right number, to me at least. So I do, the vast majority of my work is going to be 4 sets. The only exception in that is overhead press. I like to have a lot of volume on the overhead press. So when I train overhead press, I do 3 sets, but it's not really 3 sets because in between the sets, I'm going to deload the bar and do volume. So let's say I do 155 on overhead press for 5. I'm going to do 155 and then I'm going to strip the weight, and with 135 on the bar, I'm going to do 5. So that 3 sets becomes 6 because I have a set in between. Same thing for the pin press. I do 4 sets of pin press, but because in between I'm going to do some volume, it's going to become 8. And the only set range that is higher for me is when I do low impact movements that act more like a rehab. So back hyperextension, pull-ups, push-ups, all of these I'm going to do 6 to 7 sets, usually 6. So that's how I work for my rep range. If I know that all of that is quite vague, if you want to see it in action, go in the Natural Hypertrophy playlist and you're going to find example where I detail a day for you of my program so that you can have a better understanding on how I apply these principles. Thank you for watching and have a good day.